and the diaspora to redouble efforts to attract more domestic and foreign direct investment into Africa. And this is so because Africa has 5 clear advantages of factors, which many of our colleagues who are listening in would know. Africa is the most natural resource endowed continent in the world, with various minerals, raw materials, and commodities for production of virtually everything that you can think of. Secondly, Africa has a combined gross domestic product, GDP, of about 3.5 trillion, and it's growing. It also has a vast market of about 1.3 billion people with a growing middle class, and which is the population is projected to reach about 2.5 billion people. That is a big market, and currently there are efforts which are underway to make it into a single market. We also have a youthful, largely educated population that can easily be skilled for low cost-effective in production. And of course, in Africa, you have the highest return on investment, which is averaging about 12% or even more compared to the global average of 7%. And that's according to UNCTAD, the UN Conference on Trade and Investment. And the fifth point is that we have sound economic policies, stability, and peace in most of the 54 African countries. It used to be the case that whenever people would think about Africa, they would think about conflict. But now, out of the 54 countries, we have residual conflict in only about 4, and even efforts are being made to wind down some of those conflicts. So currently, all countries and economies globally are going through unprecedented times due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the projections by the World Bank indicate that the global economy will decline by about 5.2% on average, while African countries will decline by about 2.4% this year. Nevertheless, there are prospects that within the next 2 years, we are likely to see recovery. What we have also
sir, anyone looking at the
some sectors of the economies are more resilient.
Very high level.
Manufacturing, agriculture,
that is a
business, healthcare, financial services.
Of course.
Whereas others are more vulnerable.
A lot of the conversation,
especially tourism
as well.
Ambassador, I think you're mute.
Can't unmute him. You can unmute him.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to figure him out. Yeah, Leona. Right, yeah, I'll unmute. I'm trying to do that.
Just on the blue button in the corner on his profile, you can unmute him.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. Unmute his audio. I've done that. It's still.
Sorry.
Okay, you can go ahead. Sorry about that. Yeah.
I hope it wasn't for a long time. I don't know why.
No. Okay.
We are seeing increasing investments from the UK, particularly in the areas of infrastructure development, agro-processing, renewable energy. The recently held UK-Africa Investment Summit in January this year, investments worth 6.5 billion in several African countries were agreed upon. The Ugandan economy has a GDP of about 30 billion and it has been growing by 6% on average for the last 2 decades, with inflation in single digits. Growth for this year was initially projected at 6.2, but it has been about 3.1 due to COVID-19. Government continues to develop transport infrastructure to link the country to regional markets, and the utilities such as water and electricity for industry and marketing and manufacturing are at cost-effective rates, about 5 cents for power. And plans are underway to repair the old railway lines in the short term, and in the medium term to establish standard railway to neighboring countries within East Africa. All this to make sure that the ease of doing business is enhanced. And this is going for a lot of countries, both within East Africa, but also further throughout the continent. Uganda is a member of the East African Community, which has a population of about 170 million people, a GDP of about 116 billion using the official exchange rate. And also, we are members of the tripartite East African Community, Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa and SADC Free Trade Area, which has a combined population of about 600 million people and a GDP of about 1.3 trillion. So the country is centrally located as a gateway to the entire African market. One of the attractive factors is that the economy is fully liberalized and investors are free to register and incorporate their businesses, either as 100% foreign owned or enter into joint partnerships. There is ease of doing business, which is being continuously improved through automation of most services, including business registration, which can be done in just one day. And government has put in place robust measures to fight corruption, which in many cases, if not checked, can hinder investment. As we've seen with COVID-19, the pandemic, it has been clear that when global supply chains get disrupted by crises or pandemics, it is important to have a significant portion of essential goods produced domestically. Therefore, many countries in Africa and elsewhere are likely to step up import substitution strategies. If I give you the example of Uganda, we import goods worth about 7 billion annually. Yet 50% of those goods, apart from the capital goods for manufacturing equipment, heavy machineries, these can be produced in the country. And that would save us about $3.5 billion, which would be invested in the economy, earning the country tax revenue, and creating more jobs for the youth and other Ugandans or East Africans. The government of Uganda, in this regard, has capitalized Uganda Development Corporation and Uganda Development Bank in this coming financial year with about 1 trillion Uganda shillings, that's about $300+ million, in order to provide affordable credit to SMEs for investment in production and manufacturing, both for the domestic market, but also for export. The opportunities for investment available are many. I'll just mention the sectors. I don't know whether Mr. Aderemi can get some of the slides. We have agriculture and agro-processing, quite a lot of opportunities there. And as we've seen, the food security sector is extremely important, especially when you have situations like we've been having. Then we have tourism. It earns the country about $1.8 billion a year, but this time it's likely to be affected, but still there are very many opportunities for investment in tourism. We have mineral beneficiation, we have oil and gas, we have ICT, we have infrastructure development, we have financial services, logistics, manufacturing in various areas, whether you're talking about fast-moving goods, you are talking about essential basic goods, agro-processed commodities, or you're talking about pharmaceutical products. All opportunities are there, and they are very many and available, not only in Uganda, but also in the region and other African countries. So health, we've seen that it's a very important sector, especially in the pandemic that we are going through, as well as education. So the details are available on the slides, and I think we can share them later on. So what are the incentives that the government has put in place for investors? There are a number of tax and non-tax incentives that the government provides. First of all, investments in processing, manufacturing, and assembly of particular items benefit from a 10-year tax holiday for a minimum of $10 million if you are a foreign investor. and 1 million for local and ESC, Ugandan and East African community members. Secondly, agro-processors can also apply for income tax exemption subject to certain conditions as indicated in the income tax. There is 0% importation duty on plant and machinery for use in manufacturing or agro-processing. We also have VAT deferment facility on plant and machinery available at importation. Almost all agricultural inputs are exempt from import VAT, and almost investors in industrial park and free zone development also get a 10-year tax holiday for developers investing about $50 million, and also about 10 million for domestic Ugandan investors, including the ESC members. So in conclusion, we can see that there is greater scope for governments and the diaspora to attract more investment to African countries, given the vast resources and opportunities available. Africans in the diaspora are encouraged to invest in Africa to create wealth in Africa. We are very grateful for the remittances that they have continued to send. But there is more that they can do now that we are trying to see how to improve manufacturing. They can set up SMEs, they can go into joint ventures, but they can also take advantage of investments into things like treasury bonds, treasury bills, because they earn a lot more than their money would earn when invested in Western countries. Because, for example, here in the UK, you'd be lucky to get interest of about 1%, but the treasury bills in countries go for 10%, and this is risk-free. In that way, they are getting good return on their investment. At the same time, they're also contributing to the development of those countries. So we look forward to exchanging of views and ideas during this discussion on how attraction of investments and how governments and the diaspora can contribute in a more effective way. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Mugerewa, for your very expositive presentation. Can I please request that we mute ourselves? I don't want to mute everybody because
Mr. Kunle, you have to mute everybody.
Yes,
you have to mute everyone.
Okay.
As long as you have the mic, you have to mute everybody.
I just okay. Everybody's on mute now. That's good. Thank you very much for that, Ambassador Mugerewa, for your speech. I would like to say this opportunity you're giving us about what's going on in Uganda is an eye-opener to a lot of us about what we have available. While we're still waiting, I will call on Honorable Tululokwe Akodeshadikwe, who is a member of the Federal House of Representatives, Abuja, Nigeria, and the chairperson of the House Committee on Diaspora. I would like to let everyone know we have all the speakers we have here today are going to speak for 10 minutes. At some point in between, we'll have a question and answer session, in which I will encourage everyone to please send in your questions into the chat room. Then we'll be able to ask each of the speakers those questions. And anyone who wants to maybe take this further after this engagement to contact any of the speakers, please let me know. I'll get across to them, and I'm sure one way or the other we'll be able to establish contact for each and every one. It's my pleasure to introduce once again Honorable Tululokwe Akodeshadikwe of the Federal House of Representatives, Abuja, Nigeria. She's also the chairperson, House Committee on Diaspora, and represents the Oluyole Federal Constituency in Ibadan, your state of Nigeria. Good afternoon, ma'am, and welcome to this podium. Can you please make your presentation? Thank you. Trying to see if maybe she's on mute. Honorable Shadipe is on mute, and I think we should try and unmute her now. Okay. Honorable Shadipe, are you there, please? She's not. While we're waiting for her, can I call on, let me see, Mr. Akwasi Ababio, Director Diaspora at the Presidency in Ghana. If you're present, please, we will love to have you here now. I think, can anyone hear?
Yeah, and
okay.
I've been listening in for a while.
Right.
Thank you very much for the opportunity that you have given us to enable us to participate in this August assembly. As you all know, Ghana is becoming synonymous with the diaspora return and the diaspora engagement for our famous year of return and subsequently our Beyond the Return program. The year of return was a one-year program which basically looked at inviting all the African diaspora and the Ghanaian diaspora to come back to Ghana for what we had termed the year of return. And after the success of this year of return, we have now launched ourselves into the Beyond the Return, which is officially to be launched later within a few months, I think somewhere next month or so. But we have already defined clearly what we are looking to do beyond the return. It is basically to consolidate the gains that we had made during the year of return. We are looking to see how the role of the diaspora can be more vigorous, played to assist in our industrialization, in our development efforts. At the same time, we are also looking to see how government on its part can also continue to facilitate and to improve on the means and ways to enable businesses to come to Ghana and operate. We are looking to set Ghana up as the center of the world because we are the closest country that you can get that is, sits on the equator and the longitudinal meridian line, which makes us the center of the world. But most importantly, to position Ghana as the routes to Africa, the major entrance that will give anyone who wants to do any diaspora engagement to Africa, based on our historical past and everything that we have contributed to in the past, to set up Ghana as the gateway to Africa. By so doing, there are a number of initiatives that the government has been undertaking. But the prominent one, of course, is the Beyond the Return that we are just about to engage ourselves in, which is going to be a 10-year program to be spearheaded by the Ministry of Tourism and other associated ministries, and in partnership with the Diaspora Affairs Office of the President. Plans are far advanced to do this, and we already have, within this same framework, the opportunity to develop our diaspora engagement policy, which is basically a framework that will enable us to know how all the stakeholders can collaborate, can work together to achieve the objectives that we set for ourselves. Towards these initiatives, there are a number of key institutions that have been put in place as we speak, one of which is the Diaspora Affairs Office of the President, which is spearheading some of the initiatives. And then also we have the Secretariat for the Diaspora Beyond the Year Return, which is also set up within the tourism industry. Within the Foreign Affairs industry, Foreign Affairs Ministry, we also have the old and original diaspora unit, which is basically the gateway through which most of the inquiries that are being made as far as the diaspora engagement are concerned. And we also have our GIPC, which is the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, which also leads in the investment drive. All these units have got their own diaspora units that also enable us to engage directly with the diaspora. Of course, with the centralization of the administration and the coordination from the Diaspora Affairs Office of the President. We are looking to see how we can, have financial profiles and investment climates data for the diaspora to enable them to facilitate their engagement. And we are also setting up to strengthen our Ghanaian associations and through our foreign ministries, and also to encourage the bigger diaspora community of the African American and the Caribbeans to engage with us as far as attracting the foreign direct investments are concerned. So these are all initiatives that are currently in place already and are also being enhanced. The diaspora community is also being encouraged to market themselves dynamically and then to be as competitive as possible in the landscape of looking for investors to come into the country. The diaspora community is also being, urged to promote agencies that in their host countries and to become the conduits through which, other unrelated diasporas can also work with them to, invest and promote our investments agenda. The diaspora community is also being asked to, be the role players of ambassadorial role players in promoting the country's direct investment policies and trying to be the networks that would have to be in place to enable us to have access to all their resources and people that they can work with to bring the necessary requirements that we also need in our country. In addition to that, we are also looking to see how the role of government in attracting the necessary profiles that are required can be strengthened. Towards this initiative, a number of organizations are being strengthened to enable us, the banks and the our identity profiling, all the institutions, etc., are being encouraged to become, to enable us to have the store of knowledge that is available here in Ghana to be able to do the matching that is also required from our diaspora community. Side by side to this, we are also profiling our diaspora community to enable it to become a bank of resources that can also be tapped in by organizations that are looking for those specific and rare expertise that are so often available in the diaspora. So all these initiatives in the end, we hope would go a long way to enable the diaspora community to play a meaningful role in our engagement, in our development, in our efforts to really make use of all the resources that are available to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Akwasi Akwa-Babio, for that very short presentation you made. Actually, we said 10 minutes. You managed to do it within 7 minutes, which is actually very good. And it means to give us time for the speakers as well.
I hope in the question and answers period, we'll be able to, throw in some more ideas.
Yes. That's what I was about to say. Please, if you have any questions, right now we've had the ambassadors speak from Uganda. Mr. Babio has spoken now from Ghana. If you have any questions regarding those two countries, please send your questions to the chat room. We'll be able to read those questions at some point. And that will be after the next speaker. We'll read some of the questions in the chat room. I have the pleasure of introducing Honorable Tululokwe Shadipe, the member of Federal House of Representatives in Abuja, Nigeria, who is also the chairperson, House Committee on Diaspora. She's one of our key speakers this afternoon. She was otherwise engaged, but she's now joined us. Good afternoon, madam. You're welcome to the platform.
Yes, thank you very much. And I'm glad to be here to talk about our great nation, Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Network issues.
Okay.
And I'm praying we won't have too many interruptions with regards to network issues.
I hope
which
so.
Is a prime investment area.
Okay. Okay. You have your questions, which I'd already sent to you prior. Can you start your presentation, please? Or are you already having the network problems you predicted? Okay, I'm trying to unmute you now. I think somehow you're mute. Okay, you.
Hi, can you see me now?
Yeah, I can see you. I can see you. Yeah,
okay, it's frozen
proceed
from my end, so I see you frozen.
Right, okay.
And I can't hear anything you're saying.
You should be able to, because you are not on mute.
Can you hear my audio?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I'm glad to be part of this webinar this morning. It's been a very, very busy morning. I've been in a few places this morning already. So please allow me to stand on all existing protocol and just basically talk, because I can't hear you.
Okay, you can do that.
Like you introduced, my name is Honorable Tolu Akondishadipe, and I'm the chairperson Diaspora Committee. I represent a constituency in Oyo State, which is Oluyole Federal Constituency. And like I said, I'm happy to be here. What am I going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about the opportunities for investment here in Nigeria and what we are doing as legislators. I'm going to talk about what the executive is doing that we are able to oversight and impact. I'm going to talk about the impact that we require from the judiciary. But before I go into that, let me talk about the opportunities that are in Nigeria, first and foremost. Nigeria is a very rich country when it comes to investment opportunities. We have, a few minutes ago, I mentioned information technology, IT, and as you can see, you're frozen on my screen. That's clearly an indication that there's a huge market for information technology infrastructure, agriculture, real estate and construction, power, natural resources, minerals, oil and gas, precious stones, forestry, transportation, entertainment and media, sports, healthcare, environmental sustainability. Name it, Nigeria is rich and prime for it. But before a Nigerian in diaspora will feel comfortable coming to invest in their own country, they have concerns, obviously, which I can identify with, having been a Nigerian in diaspora at one point. Serious concerns. They have to be sure that when they bring their technical know-how, they bring their financial capability into this environment, they have to be sure that they will get the support of society itself, that they will get the support of government. Government has a very key role to play. And when I say government, I'm going to break it down into three areas. The NAS, which is the National Assembly, we the legislators. When you look at it, you look at the executive, the ministries, the presidency, NIDCOM, federal government, as we know it, as in the executive arm of it. And then the judiciary. And now let me tell you why every single component of government is a priority and is important. It's because we make the laws, the legislators make the laws. And we intend, at least I know. Can I actually please have a minute? Because I feel more comfortable if I'm able to see you and hear you. So just give us a few minutes. Let me try and do some manipulation at this end, because I feel like I'm just talking to myself.
Okay.
Could it be your network that you're bringing on?
It's because we went out.
So what do we do now?
if you reinstate your video, yeah, you're on video now, but you're on mute.
I'm not on.
Okay. Oh, you're back on. Okay. You're mute and you're off video. Right, she's dropped off completely, I think. I want to apologize for that. I think, right, she's spoken about investments in Nigeria. Obviously, it looks like we need investments in the area of IT in Nigeria. While we are waiting for Honorable Shadipe to come back, all right, she's coming back now. Let me see. Okay, she's joined us now. Madam, can you continue your speech? You are still on mute, but your video is on. Okay.
I'm glad to be back. I'm sorry about that, but I just had to get my internet infrastructure right on this end. So like I was saying, I'm sure you heard the point where I talked about the executive and the legislature and the judiciary, and why it's very important that that we're all on this journey together, because it's a collaborative journey. Nigerians in diaspora, like I said, wouldn't feel comfortable coming to invest at home, or anybody, because I wouldn't feel comfortable if the environment is not right. So we, the legislators, have decided that we're going to make Nigerians in diaspora comfortable, because we value them, we value the social economic impact they can have on the nation. When you look at the number of Nigerians outside the nation and their economic capacity, wow, it's the number is overwhelming. So basically, something that the Ninth Assembly has just done, and which we should be able to complete after recess. We should have second and third readings of the diaspora voting bill. The objective of this bill is to ensure that Nigerians feel comfortable when they're in diaspora, that they can influence what is going on at home. Well, if you have influence over something, you feel more comfortable bringing your money, bringing your technical know-how into that space. So that's one thing we've done. There's also the local content legislation that we all are aware of that's ongoing to ensure that Nigerians are able to participate in key industry areas in Nigeria. That's just to name a few. And then when you look at the executive side of it, it was the executive that set up NIDCOM. What was the objective of setting up NIDCOM? To ensure that there's an agency dedicated to dealing with issues that are relating to Nigerians in diaspora. The judiciary, on the other hand, also, you bring your investments into Nigeria, you want to be sure that your investments are protected. And that way, you know that when there are issues between you and other people involved in the business, that the judiciary will be there for you. Which is why you will notice now that in Nigeria, there are opportunities for arbitration and improved judicial processes with regards to businesses. We have the open door, it's called the multi-door courthouse, which helps to expedite cases. And then when it comes to the issue of security in the country, even just last week, the House, led by Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila of the Ninth Assembly, invited the National Security Advisor again and the necessary military arms to discuss the issue of security in the nation. Because yes, you're going to invest in a nation, you want to ensure that you feel secure. So if you can see from that angle, the government is trying to do as much as possible to make Nigerians feel comfortable in coming to invest in Nigeria. Like I mentioned earlier on, there are at least 15 million Nigerians in diaspora across the world with different levels of expertise. Their median household income is like $62,000. And when you look at that, that's some excess funds that has been coming to Nigeria as remittances. But those have been coming in as social remittances. Now, if the Nigerians in diaspora who have access to, let me just share an example. Gatwick Airport in England, invested in Gatwick Airport, could have invested in Nigeria. So there are a lot of opportunities worldwide, but what Nigeria is trying to do now is to get those investments that are going on out there by Nigerians to come into Nigeria and help build our economy. Because at the end of the day, Nigeria is the one and only true home that diasporans have. Diasporans will build houses. In building those houses, they could harness the opportunities in the construction industry. With NIDCOM there now, when Nigerians want to invest in real estate, they can vet who they're going to be investing with through NIDCOM. So when you compare it to the past 10, 15 years, there's been a great improvement. Initially, it was just an office in the presidency that dealt with diaspora matters. But now we have a full-fledged commission. And I'm sure when Honorable Abike Dabiri comes on, she'll give you in-depth details about NIDCOM. So I'm not going to dwell much about NIDCOM. But I want you to also, Nigerians in diaspora, note that yes, we at home are aware that you are feeling quite insecure about going from a tried and tested environment offshore and taking the risk here at home in Nigeria. But when you look at it, because it's an emerging market, the opportunities here for you are huge. It's an emerging market. And when you compare it to the opportunities you are getting out there, if you dive into businesses, your opportunities out there are limited. The market here is huge. The market in Africa and the market in Nigeria is huge. Just think about it. Agriculture. People are going to eat. It's a green area. And there's so much that can be done in that area. And then from agriculture can come industrialization. And when I'm talking about industrialization, I'm talking about just at one point, agric industrialization, processing. We have cocoa. Our cocoa goes out there to be processed and brought back. If the proper equipment are on the ground, this equipment can be used to process international standard, and the market is here. I mentioned real estate earlier on. I mentioned information technology, power. Everything lies on power. There's a huge, huge, huge opportunity in power. Natural resources. Name the natural resource. We have it here in Nigeria. But it is not being harnessed because it requires foreign investments. And why can't these foreign investments come from Nigerians in diaspora? Why does it have to be the Indians and the Lebanese that come into Nigeria with briefcases and leave Nigeria extremely rich multimillionaires? I mentioned society at the beginning. We as Nigerians, we need to also reorient ourselves. We need to wake up from colonial mentality and realize that what a Westerner can do, a Nigerian can do better. Look at our doctors. Look at the kind of reputation they have abroad. Brilliant reputations. If a couple of Nigerian doctors come together, bring in the right equipment, set up world-class medical facilities, look at another opportunity there. Rather than flying abroad because you don't have confidence in what is available here, you will go to why would I want to travel abroad if I know that I drive down the road and the doctor is there that's going to meet all my needs? We have brilliant doctors here in Nigeria, but they don't have world-class equipment. So I'm imploring doctors abroad, partner with doctors in Nigeria. They understand the terrain. They understand the diseases here in Nigeria. With the right equipment, the sky is the limit for the partnership. Is there anything else I didn't touch on? Yes, I'm making it sound so good, but definitely there are challenges. There are major challenges. One challenge is obtaining the commitment of institutions and individuals, which is societal. Ensuring that there's a proper coordination between the partners, which is society, government, and the diasporans. Ensuring that when we work with, collaborate with experienced partners, and there's no mediocrity in achieving the objective. And then also taking cognizance that there may be conflict of interest, and whereby there's conflict of interest, ensure that they are eliminated before it destroys partnerships. What else? Innovation. Let's innovate. Once we can innovate, there's a lot to be achieved. And then when I talk about agriculture, I know that there's a question that's going to come up. The issue of the herdsmen. Yes, there's the issue of herdsmen. Like I mentioned earlier, we called in the National Security Advisor and we're working aggressively. It hasn't been achieved yet, but I know that if we sustain the pace at which we're going, it will be an issue to be resolved. Several motions have been moved in the House. As you are aware, a few weeks back, or should I say a few months back, but it's been delayed because of the COVID, a Constitutional Review Committee has been set up. And we're going to be working on issues in the Constitution that can help ensure that there's more security in Nigeria. And then last week, the 9th Assembly agenda was introduced into the House. I was part of that committee. And I know that the issues I've raised there, like agriculture, the mining sector, SDG, have been very, very important factors, as well as this is not a trade issue, but it's an issue that affects Nigerians in diaspora. Human trafficking and organ harvesting. It's two major issues, and those are part of our legislative agenda in the 9th Assembly as well. So any area where there are concerns, we're trying to look at it, because it is important that we forge a stronger relationship with our Nigerians in diaspora. Let me just run through some numbers. In 2016 and 2017, remittances, like social remittances into Nigeria, was between 19.7 and 22 billion naira. And that is social remittances to friends, family, and relatives. Now imagine if those kind of funds were coming in to set up industry. It will create employment. The same families that are asking for handouts will be gainfully employed, and it will be a win-win situation across board. Is there anything else I may have forgotten? I'm racking my brain.
Okay. While you're doing that, Ma, there is a question. I'm just going straight to the question and answer session now so that we can save time. There is a question which I'll direct to yourself. I'll direct to Mr. Akwasi Ababio, and I'll direct the same question to Ambassador Mugerewa as well. One of the members here now has asked one question, said, where would be the starting point for investors from UK to approach Africa? If I want to invest in Ghana, Uganda, or Nigeria, what would be the starting point?
Okay, should I start with that answer?
Yeah, you start first, then Mr. Kwasi Ababio, then Ambassador Mugerewa.
Okay. I must mention this. The executive, the Vice President's office, now has an office dedicated to the ease of doing business in Nigeria, which I didn't mention earlier on. So I need to mention that. And they're working and doing everything possible to make doing business in Nigeria easier, because when you want to do business in Nigeria, for example, you want to acquire land, you have to be sure that the processes you go through to acquire land across the states is simple, is simplified. You're going to be bringing in equipment, simplify processes with customs. You're going to be bringing in people, if you have to, simplify processes with immigration. Now I'll go to NIDCOM. If I were a Nigerian in diaspora, the very first thing I would do is determine, where do I want to play in this massive market that's opening up to me? Do I want to be in agriculture? Do I want to be in real estate? Do I want to be in information technology? Wherever I want to be, I would contact Nigeria in Diaspora Commission. I would also talk to the ministries that are involved. If I hit any brick walls, I will revert back to NIDCOM for assistance. Because you're abroad, NIDCOM is on the ground, and there's a desk in NIDCOM that is obviously committed to economic activities and partnerships. So I would start there. Then in states, I will talk to the diaspora person, because most states now have a diaspora focused person. And they also have in their legislative arm, in most states, like in Oyo State now, Mr. Sheyi Adisa is honorable. I shouldn't call him Mr. He's now honorable. I knew him as a Mr. He's a legal practitioner, and he's also the chairperson, the State House Committee on Diaspora. And being a lawyer, you can imagine how versed he will be about the processes. You would need to register a business. You would need to deal with the Corporate Affairs Commission. So, but once you've gone through NIDCOM, or you go through your state diaspora focused persons, it would help. And also you can contact my office. If you run into any brick wall, call me. My numbers are very public. If you want it, I will repeat it here to you. Very public number. It's 0802-833-5404. You can reach my SLA. You can reach my economic assistant. My SLA is my senior legislative aide. my economic assistant, my project assistant, all these people are available to you to guide you. Because when you come to us, you know it's authentic. When you go to NIDCOM, you know it's authentic. You know, and anytime you meet a partner across the world, it might be at conferences, it might be wherever you meet them, always verify with one of these established organizations and verify in an official manner, as in write to me, write to NIDCOM, write to your state-focused person to be sure that whatever business you're about to get into is an authentic business.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope I answered it. Yeah, you've actually answered it more than what we expected. Now, your contact is public, and I'm sure if anyone wants to contact you, they can do that directly. And if you don't mind, I'm happy to direct them towards you as well. Mr. Babio, I want to ask you now, if we want to invest in Ghana, where do we start from?
Thank you again. I'm very much going to be echoing exactly what my colleague from Nigeria has said about engagement, because it's interesting to know that we are almost doing exactly the same things as they have also done. I think in Ghana, if you're going to be investing, you would first have to approach, if you are still in the diaspora, you will have the opportunity to talk to the embassies and the high commissions. And in every high commissions and embassy, we have diaspora desk officers. In addition, we also have, for some of the embassies, and not all of them, depending on the size, you will also be able to talk to a trade investment officer who would be able to direct you as to what to do next in terms of getting in touch with organizations in the country, and even pointing you to the areas where, you know, investment is very, very needed and appropriate, required. Then, of course, once you engage the country itself, we have a dedicated organization, which is the GIPC, Ghana Investment Promotion Center. The GIPC is the organization that has purposely been set up to coordinate and to ensure that they sell the country to investors and to encourage investors to come in. And therefore, they have all the necessary information regarding investments, where to invest, and how to get into partnership and all sorts of agreements and all sorts of things that you may have to do, which would be necessary for you to do the investment. GIPC, interestingly, has recently also developed the diaspora decks, which will enable them to be liaise with our office, which is the Diaspora Affairs Office of the President, coordinating all these initiatives to enable people who want to invest to know where to come to, who to see, and that sort of thing. And I think more specifically, as far as the Diaspora Affairs Office of the President is concerned, we dedicate ourselves to, once somebody has been engaged in trying to do the things that he needs to do to be able to move forward his objectives of investing in the country, there would definitely be issues to do with roadblocks and how best to get those roadblocks removed and how to facilitate the business initiatives that they come up with. So the Diaspora Affairs Office is dedicated to that cause and work hand in hand with any investor who wants to have that partnership to enable the roadblocks and the facilitation work to be done in order to also do what they set about doing. In addition to that, we are also the conduit to the local government where somebody wants to invest at the local levels. We can provide the necessary contact and information for them to be able to get to the local assemblies and project leaders to enable them to know what is required at the lowest level of the society in terms of the local assemblies, etc. So, in a nutshell, basically we repeat exactly what our colleagues in Nigeria will be doing in respect of trying to facilitate what is needed to enable somebody to carry out any investment. But lately, through again back linking ourselves to this beyond the return, that is a very high level initiative that we are looking to see how we can embrace the bigger network of diasporans out there, not just the Ghanaian diasporans, the recent migrants from Ghana who are living out there, but also the historical African Americans and the Caribbean diasporans, who we realize are also, critical for this investment opportunities that we have here.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Babio, for that again. Ambassador Mugeriwa, in 3 minutes, please. If we want to invest in Uganda, where do we start from?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Deremi. I'll be very brief. First and foremost, the first point of call would be the Ugandan missions abroad. We have 38 missions abroad in various regions of the world. In London, we are based here, and all our missions abroad are focused on promotion of commercial and economic diplomacy. So the issue of investments is top on the agenda in terms of priority that is given to the inquiries that will be coming through. So our address, our details are available, but also I would like to request you, if you can get me the last 3 slides of the presentation which I sent to you. Uganda Investment Authority has set up a one-stop center. So even if you were not able to contact the missions, you can actually directly go to Uganda Investment Authority. They have what they call the e-business center. So those are their details, www.ugandainvest.go.ug, and the eBiz one-stop center portal is www.ebiz.go.ug. If you can go back 2 slides before that. Yes, so the one-stop center services that you'll get, you'll have business registration, you'll get tax advisory, you'll also get connected to the people who deal with utilities, free zones, immigration, environmental advice and compliance, standard certification, banking facilities. So all this information you can be able to get in a very short time. And maybe one more slide before that. And this is what you would need to do. It takes actually less than a day to incorporate a company in Uganda. And the requirements are business incorporation and registration, tax registration, licensing, work permits, and trade permits as the case may be. So it is very easy to set up a business in Uganda. And if you want to do a little bit of background search and information, the mission here in London or the various missions of Uganda abroad are available to assist. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Mugeriwa, for that. I think we made fantastic progress on that. While we are looking at that, anyone who has any more questions for our previous speakers, please send that through the chat room. I'm sure we'll be able to pass that to them. We still have one more question and answer session in the course of this program. My next guest this afternoon is an industrialist. He's someone who's seen it all, done business in Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, and where have you. It's my pleasure to invite here Alhaji Munia Bankole to make his presentation. Good afternoon, sir. Alhaji Bankole, I know is, let me find out if it's, I'm sure he's not on mute, I hope. Oh, he's on mute, that's why. I'm on mute. I find him on the screen. Well, while we are waiting for Alhaji Bankole to be ready, I have the pleasure of introducing to you one of the foremost Nigerian businessmen. Look, that's as his business in the UK, Mr. Alistair Shiyode. All of us Nigerians, Africans generally, know Ben TV. That is the man behind Ben TV in the UK. is also the man that convenes what is called Yes Nigeria, a fast-rising positive and innovative movement in Nigeria to empower Nigerian youths. Mr. Shiodisa, are you here now to make your presentation? Yes, he's here.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with our diasporan community, members of the executive and leaders of our ethnic community here in the United Kingdom, all across the world. Well, I tell you one thing, being a diasporan as well, and somebody who has been working with the diaspora committees across Africa, one thing my brothers and sisters already shared is the opportunity that exists on the African continent, bearing in mind different countries from Ghana to Uganda to Nigeria. And what you have seen is with this wonderful presentation is that the whole Africa, by the example of the three nations, has given the audience and the delegate and the participant information from the east to the west to the north and to the southern part of Africa as what you really need in establishing a business or directing investment into these African countries. Rightly so as well. When we talk about maybe 15 million Nigerians in the diaspora plus all the African nations, we'll be talking of almost 50 million Africans outside of Africa as a continent. Nevertheless, what we have seen as well, bearing in mind the COVID-19 coronavirus issue that has somehow challenged Africa as a continent, we technically and in collaboration with other industries will realize that the biggest industry on the African continent is the tourism industry, the hospitality industry, which by indication of what have taken place over the last few months, that industry could be potentially generating something between 30 to $50 billion on a yearly basis. Somehow, the last 4 months has indicated that Africa as a continent has lost quite a lot of investment into that nation, into our different nations. Taking that into consideration, now we have to calculate what are we going to do post-COVID? Not just Africa as a continent, but what we have seen Western nations doing now tries to stimulate the economy. And the biggest market as well that they're talking about and looking at is what they can do in terms of other businesses that exist within their own domain. And the biggest one, of course, that they're talking about is the hospitality industry, holidays, and people planning to go on holiday. Now, my take is Africa would definitely be most likely the biggest gainer if we and our African leaders do the right thing. Why do I think Africa would be the biggest gainer? Because just like Honorable Tolulokpe mentioned, with 15 million Nigerians outside the country and roughly $20 billion remittance on a yearly basis just to Nigeria with other African countries, it shows that Africans are the people who are still connected to their continent more than the Western or European nation who don't have as many migrants outside their continent. So if we can do what we need to do, and this is basically back to the leaders, members of the House of Assembly, people working within the presidency and other organizations, we need really to key into the opportunity. As an African as well, we do talk about, we don't really care, but we tend to portray that we're absolutely ready for the diaspora to come in. Now, the diaspora, of course, will listen and they will say, well, this is not the first time that we have seen that this kind of wonderful presentation by different leaders, by different honorable, by different committee. There must be that willingness, that political will to gather and bring them in. The investment, the remittances that has been sent home has nothing really to do with people actually trying to invest in their different African countries. It just means that people are just sending the social remittances back to family members for different various other things that they want to do. So I'm hoping that post-COVID, and one thing that the world has shown that is Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. When you take that into consideration, ladies and gentlemen, you will now realize that the world completely has changed, not just because of COVID-19, but because of all the historical perspectives that we have now seen that the West are keen into and our Black people keen into. Should we allow the momentum to die away in a few weeks' time, in a few months' time? The answer should be no. So I'm appealing to anybody that has the capacity and the resources, not just by talking, but walking the walk. There's a difference that, yes, let's go back. A lot of people want to go back, and a lot of people now are talking about, should we start looking into our African countries? But I can tell you what, it's easier to convince a Black person who has no root directly in the first, second generation to think about going back to But for those African migrants like others that have actually left Africa for one reason or another, it's not that easy to convince them. But they are the one that is making the remittances on a yearly basis. So I'm keen and appealing to the leaders, and I'm hoping that the communique that will come out of this wonderful gathering of business people, political leaders, will really go back into our system to see what we can do to generate and empower our people. As a Black person who lives in the United Kingdom, as a person who has no media background, yet setting up the first Black TV station in Europe, is something that I have gathered and I have learned quite a lot. But apart from that, actually, I'm a former chairman of Nigerians in Diaspora Organization, Europe and Continental and around the world. So again, I have gathered a lot of experiences, a lot of skill that our people really want to help. Our people really want to develop our nations. But the question now is, how real, how sincere, how genuine are our political leaders out there? As I said, we have done this talking, and it's right time for us now to key in and begin to implement the necessary policy. But in order for people to know that they will be protected, law and order must be paramount all across Africa, not just in Nigeria, not just in Ghana, not just in Uganda, but has to be across the blanket of Africa as a continent. Finally, for me, as somebody who has been seeing what the West are calculating, the West has spent quite a lot of money to keep their economy going. As the days go by, they will now try as much as possible to build their economy internally, not by giving grants or aids anymore. Then Africa, in terms of agriculture, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of our own other independent production aspect and resources that we talk about, we need to key in and see what can we do, what other product can we sell. We talk about cocoa, for example, in Ghana, that they take the raw material out and they sell chocolate back to us. But why can't we then why can't we put the factories together? How much does it cost to put the factory together for those that have the resources? We have the capacity. The market is always there. So until when we ourselves love ourselves and do the right thing, other people will just look at us. And I tell you one thing, every story of things that happen within our community, as long as you have the technology, then it's outside your community. So if I accuse you, if I praise you for one story, then rest assured that the story comes from your side, and I'm only a learner, and I'm only a listener, and I'm only a watcher, seeing what you're doing to your own people. So let's portray our people in a positive way. Let's try as much as possible to develop our nation. Let's sell the ideas, and maybe the market, and maybe our people, those who really want to be part of it, because it's not every African in the diaspora that want to be part of Africa. It's just like we can see from the other side. And again, finally, we look at, when we talk about issues within our community, within our constituency, there are a lot of challenges from the local to the national and to the international community, even within Africa. My prayer and hope is that our leaders, please, let's key into partner, support our local people so that we that are trying as much as possible as well to change the narrative of our story can do so. For the political parties, let their internal democracy be a thing, because investment is key. And there are people who want to invest in any situation, which means even during war, there are people who want to invest because they want to sell arms. But we want to build Africa. And there's a lot of things that our leaders can key into. And as a diasporan, I still want to see my energy directed to Africa, to see Africa do well. Once again, I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and I look forward to more engagement. God bless.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sashayode, for that very creative talk and the appeal you've made to diasporans, our government and politicians. I think one of the key things we will take away from this place today is we will be looking to follow up on steps taken by each and everyone who's here, what they are doing, and how we can help monitor this so that we just don't do the talking alone. We marry the talking with real actions as well, so that we start to add value to our continent. It's nice to talk, yeah, but it's more important to actually do something. And that's where we will be happy to work with any of the governments across Africa so that we can actually add value to our country. While you were talking, Honorable Abike Dabiri joined us. If you're ready to make your presentation, that would be nice. But if you're still trying, are you ready to make your presentation, please? Hello?
Yeah, hello. Mr. Kule, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
This is Laji Bankole Medview.
Oh, Alaji, good afternoon, sir. Oh, okay.
How you doing?
Very well, sir.
To everybody, yeah.
Yeah, while we are waiting for Honorable Abike Dabiri, Chairman of NIDCOM, to settle in, Alaji Bankole, can you make your presentation, sir? Like you know, everybody, we have 10 minutes. Afterwards, you'll be able to answer some questions. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. Let me just go to the topic, attracting investment to African and role of diaspora and government. I just like to take my colleague today back to the memory lane in the days of the commitment of Nigerian and the other African government, when we like of Nigerian Airways, Ghana Airways, and InvestAfrica, which virtually for all of us, you know the importance at the level of aviation. InvestAfrica comprises about 10 to 11 Francophone countries in West Africa, while Nigeria Airways stand alone for Nigeria and Ghana Airways of those days. And that gave a lot of opportunity to those Africans. I want to use the word African now. I want to be a bit diverse away from being a Nigerian. The opportunity that we all have, being a Commonwealth nation, how do we get to London? We put a lot of African stuff into the market. You have a market in Liverpool where you can find anything. You have the Nigerian stuff, Ghanaian food, everything was there. So my experience in the last 40 years in the aviation industry will be what I will share with all of you. That whatever we've been talking about, let's key to the opportunity both in the transportation sector. Like African diaspora can bring in a lot of opportunity for their population. West African countries alone were about 300 million, if not 4. That is a single segment of the Africa. When you talk of the North Africa, you talk of the East Africa, you talk of the Central Africa, and you come down to the South Africa, all the airlines, except few of them, 1 or 2 in the North Africa, 1 or 2 in the East Africa, probably you talk of Kenya Airways, Ethiopia Airlines. None in West Africa anymore. The whole 3 gone. Now we are sorry about what's going on in South Africa. So what I'm just saying here is to bring back the government involvement in supporting their own. We venture into an international operation in keeping Nigerians, African in diaspora, bringing them to Nigeria and putting them across to all West African countries. That is the testimony that we want to encourage the African in diaspora to bring their mindset to come. We have the population, we have the market, we have the goods. I will tell you the African in diaspora will prefer to eat the African food. That is having nutritional value. It has a lot of less carbohydrate. You enjoy eating your food. And that grows your children, bringing back to the language, the culture, African interaction within the African, members. So I share this opportunity today to talk to all our colleagues and the government to support their own. Bring back within the African country a kind of freedom of movement. Encourage a liberated barter agreement between ourselves. Let African people work together. They've been talking about bringing single currency. I don't know for how long they've been talking about this single currency. We've been talking about other issues related to you to get to African countries, your neighbors. You'll be looking at your neighbor as if you are a foreign person. So we need to get that out of our mindset, bring everybody together. Let's live as one. I give the opportunity to African in diaspora to team up together. You can form alliance and we will support you. I've tried it, it's visible, it's possible. And I'm telling you with the God Almighty, we are coming back. We knew very well how many passengers we are carrying. We deploy a 747 on that line, Boeing 747. And we know the diplomacy that came into our market. We know the security issue. We know everything, but it's not for this forum. And we will tell you they don't want you to be there. They don't want you to be there. So the African government need to work against this. We are 26 European members. I faced them in Brussels, where you cannot ban a Nigerian carrier, because what applied to Nigerian carrier applied to British Airways, applied to Virgin in UK, and that was the threat. So we need to sit together. We need to encourage ourselves. We are suffering. For you to go from Abidjan and go to Paris and come back to Liberia or any African country, you know how much you're going to pay. Why the sector is just a question of 4 or 5 hours. So we encourage all of us, Africa and diaspora, to work together. Make yourself a family. Whether you are a Ghanaian, you are, come wherever you come. Put yourself together. Take an advantage of the window. You have the right to charter flight. You have the right to bring African at Christmas, at Easter, at every time. Bring yourself home and bring your family back as soon as you are going. People like us will support you. There is nothing difficult to do. This is my few contribution on supporting our brothers and sisters in African diaspora to think of eliminating these challenges. Come together. You spend the money there, you buy houses. Those houses will not come back with you to your country. Those are not investment. Your investment is what we give to the children that are coming, the one you have brought to this world. So I want to share my opinion with you and wish all of you the best. Thank you very much for now. Available for question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that candid advice to all politicians and the businesses as well, especially those of us in diaspora. I'm sure majority of people here would always look into doing something back in Nigeria, and I've shared that with you once. One of the things that is always a problem is the fear of the unknown. But with Honorable Tolulope Shadipe here, we have Mr. Abike Dabiri here, we have Mr. Akwasi Ababio, Ambassador Leonard Mugerewa here. Africa is well represented. Now we know who to talk to now for us to have the confidence to want to come back to Nigeria, especially those of us from Ibadan. It's a place where we want to come and make our own contributions. While we are doing that, I have the pleasure of introducing to you Mr. Emeka Ofo. He is the Director of Communications, Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission in Abuja, NIPC. They're all about investment. And I'm sure he will be able to give us a more deeper insight into investment opportunities, into what's available, into incentives for investors into Nigeria. Okay. Mr. Emeka Ofo, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure discussing with everybody on this platform. My name is Emeka Ofo from the Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission. I would like to start by, I've actually been asked to talk on how NIPC, Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, is repositioning Nigeria to attract investment in this COVID era. The COVID era that we are seeing at the moment has really changed the way things are done. A lot of people call it the new normal, but that is the situation we are seeing. Things have drastically changed in business, in real life, and in every aspect that you can think of. But in addressing the issue that I've been asked to talk about, I would like to first of all introduce NIPC as the agency of the federal government of Nigeria that is responsible or has the mandate to encourage, promote, and coordinate investment in Nigeria. What we do by that is that first of all, we try to make Nigeria an attractive place to do business in terms of projecting the image of Nigeria to be attractive. That is a difficult assignment, but it is not undoable. Nigeria itself has a lot of attractive things and a lot of things that make Nigeria attractive. We also do typical investment promotion, which actually is trying to promote the investment opportunities in Nigeria to Nigerians and non-Nigerians. We want foreigners to invest in Nigeria, but we also want Nigerians to invest in their own country. The other thing we do is that we project, we do investment facilitation. Now, when we convince you to invest in Nigeria, we don't stop at that. We try to handhold you to ensure that whatever we promised you, that we have a way of getting it actualized in Nigeria. So in terms of investment facilitation, we provide support to investors and register enterprises in Nigeria, especially those enterprises that may require foreign participation, that foreigners can play in. We do matchmaking, and also we provide information on investment incentives and approve or administer pioneer status. I'm just trying to give you a context before I tell you exactly what we are doing. Finally, we do policy advocacy by initiating and supporting measures that will enhance the investment climate in Nigeria. We also try to evaluate the impact of investment incentives. You know, we administer the incentives, so we try to evaluate the impact and make appropriate recommendations to government. Basically, we advise government on policy matters to promote Nigeria's economic development. We are not a regulatory agency. Our job is basically advisory, but we are a friend of investors in government. So having said that, I would like to take us back to the economic situation at the moment. We think that if you look at, let me start from UNCTAD, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. They sort of put out a projection that says something to the effect that global FDI flows will drop significantly in 2020 and 2021 as a result of so many factors, including but largely based on COVID-19, the impact of COVID-19. They estimate that 30 to 40% drop will happen in FDI flows. Now, if you look at the projection from 2016, the drop there has been dropped almost every year in, year out in terms of global FDI flows. That's the foreign direct investment that flows to different countries, you know, from maybe 1.9 trillion in 2016 to 1.4 trillion in 2018. So they're expecting that there will be a significant drop, 30 to 40% in 2020, 2021. And I would like to say that if you look at even global flows over the past 10 years, you will find out that Africa has not even been presently, Africa accounts for 3%, just mega 3% of global flows. Out of the 14 billion, Africa accounts only for 3%, whereas regions like Asia did 29, Europe did 28, North America did about 20%, Africa did 3%, even though we control 17% of the world population. It doesn't sound better with the impact of COVID-19. But what does that tell us? In Africa, in Nigeria, we need to rethink the business dynamics. The other thing that comes to my mind is the projections done by IMF. IMF expects that there will be a global recession in 2020, 2021. The way it affects different countries differ. Some are very high, some are very low. Some up to 9%, some are low. I think Nigeria is maybe something in between. But the point is that it is not getting easy. So we have to and make sure that we re-strategize in line with if we are to attract more investment in Nigeria, not just by NIPC, but by the whole of the apparatus existing in Nigeria. I want to just basically talk about expectations, before I round up. Expectation, what we expect to see happen in the business environment post-COVID-19. We believe in NIPC, first of all, that it has already happened. There are likely to be even more shocks and delay in demand. So it will affect profit, it will affect labor size, it will affect global investment, and then it will affect living human index. We believe that there will be need globally and locally and domestically to restructure the business mechanism, from global value chain and over-reliance on regional supply bases to see how we can develop regional or local or domestic investment, value chain development. We believe that there is need to enhance application of information and communication technology in all aspects of business and living, with e-commerce and automation of tools becoming maybe the next intent. If it's not really the intent, you can use technology to bypass some of the challenges we are having. And that is one of the projections that we see that may happen. We suspect that many countries will also continue to sustain their travel restrictions and impose more checks at entry points. This may affect global tourism and then integrated industries like aviation. But nothing is cast in stone, so there will still always be ways of getting things done and creative ways of achieving real value. And then the next thing that is also very important that we think that countries should do is to review national investment policies, international and bilateral agreements, and make sure that we match or we balance investors' rights with obligations. Some agreements or bilateral agreements or multilateral agreements do not really balance some of these things from the experience that we have seen in what is happening with the ones that we reviewed in Nigeria. We also think that there may be need to rethink social contracts. Social distancing, how does it change the business culture and practices? Defining the future of work and consumption, the use of technology that, like I mentioned, and then changing business model. We think is important to prioritize that material sourcing and production. We should basically move closer to regionalization of supply chains. I will now like to quickly say that the role of government basically is to make sure that the business environment is conducive, provide economic, political, and secure investment, and then make sure that we friendly business enabling environment and facilitate the development of entrepreneurial opportunities so that people can invest. So I now want to summarize by saying what NIPC, Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, is doing to attract or reposition Nigeria. First of all, I would like to mention that we have embraced a remote working model in line with the federal government of Nigeria's directive. Just like every other person, or most people have. From what we have seen, even during the lockdown, we were working remotely. And the implication is that we continue to publish our newsletter, which we call the NIPC Intelligence. It pulls information on what is happening in Nigeria's investment space, especially the positive one. The essence is to use it to promote Nigeria's attractiveness. We have created a special section on our website, nipc.gov.ng, on COVID-19 and its impact on what government is doing to alleviate the impact of COVID-19 on businesses, and then to bring the information closer to the investing public. We have also updated our iGuide. Our iGuide is online investment platform that we have put in place. It can be found on our website. and then you can access it as much as you want to get information on cost and processes of doing business in Nigeria. We also optimized our social media platforms to disseminate information on the business environment. In promoting Nigeria's investment attractiveness, it first of all has to come up with information that investors can use. And then we also sustain NIPC's intelligence, like I mentioned that before. And then the major thing that we have done is that our analysis of COVID-19 and its impact, or our assessment, not analysis, of its impact on the economy, on our lives, seem to suggest that everybody is learning on the job. Even the experts, the World Health Organization, they'll give you one information, tomorrow they'll give you another information. So everybody is learning on the job. At NIPC, we want to apply some humility to say that we do not know all the answers. We do not know what the private sectors want, because this is a novel situation that we are facing. We do not all have the answers. So one of the things we want to do and that we are doing at the moment is to build collaboration across sectors to facilitate exchange of information, and also to build cooperation for implementation of investment promotion activities. Recently, we held a seminar, a webinar, with all the states in Nigeria. You know, ultimately, the investment will sit at the states, not even in head office or wherever. It will sit at the subnational governments, the states. So we held a knowledge sharing session with all the states in Nigeria to better understand the impact, and also to ensure that we build synergy to attract investment in Nigeria. The other thing that we are doing is to, like I said before, we want to better understand the impact. We do not have all the answers. So we are going to work with the MBS, the Bureau of Statistics, to conduct a nationwide survey. That survey will be on existing enterprises to gauge the pulse on how government could support the revitalization of the economy post COVID-19. The idea is to better understand and to get better understanding on what needs to be done. Then also, we also do a scan on the opportunities that are really prominent. If you ask me what I think should be the sectors that will do, I can tell you what I know. But if you follow it scientifically and conduct research, you will be able to come up with a sector scan that tells you exactly the sectors that government should focus and support. So it should not be about anybody's. The next thing that we are doing is to enhance e-facilitation. One of the things that has happened with COVID-19 and the lockdown is that a lot of things could be done remotely. And so we will soon launch what we call the single window investment facilitation platform. That platform will ginger and gather information from all angles so that anybody that wants to invest in Nigeria will be able to do it without coming to Nigeria, without even visiting Nigeria. So it's planned to be a robust platform. We also call it EOSIC for emphasis. I think the next thing that we want to do, what we are doing, is to reform the incentives. You know, without incentives, a lot of people can do businesses without incentives, but with an incentives, it makes it easier for them. It serves as like an icing on the cake, and they look at it and use it to bypass or manage in the economy. So we did a reform process in 2017, where we looked at some of the issues that we have in administering status incentive. So with that, we feel that basically there is need in the onset of COVID-19 and its impact to review the process of, and then maybe add more products, more services, more activities. And finally, I mentioned in my introduction something about the need to review and ensure that we have friendly bilateral and multilateral agreements. When somebody is doing business in another country, needs to be sure of the kind of existence, bilateral agreements that exist between the country of origin and maybe the country where he wants to invest. So we want to ensure that everybody is protected, that Nigeria continues to remain very attractive. I want to conclude by saying that Nigeria, in spite of all the challenges, Nigeria is still an attractive country to doing business. What we have seen recently is that a lot of more committed directions are coming from Nigerian investors. By that I mean serious investors are now coming up and saying, what next? What do we do? How do we invest? Which sector should we invest? So you are seeing more activities from Nigerians wanting to invest in their own country. So when Nigerians become ambassadors of their country, it becomes easier for foreigners to come in. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ofo, for that, what I'll call education about the roles of NIPC and what you do and how Nigerians and non-Nigerians can come into Nigeria and invest. Without wasting too much time, we still have a couple of minutes to go. We have Honorable Abike Dagbiri. She has joined us now, and I would like to welcome her onto the platform. She is the Chairman, CEO, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, called NICOM. You remember Honorable Shadipe mentioned that previously. If you're ready to join us now, man, can you take the platform?
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. Sorry I'm joining late. Today is International Family Remittances Day. And of course, that has to do with diaspora remittances. And we had a webinar with the UN, World Bank, and about 6 countries on how to ensure remittance flow still continue, and how to ease, the impact of COVID-19. So sorry, the time clashed, and I had to do with them. We just ended. I don't know what has been said, but I'm sure everything has been said. Cynthia Josephia here, who is a prominent member of the Nigerian Diaspora Investment Summit. I'm sure, Theodore would have spoken. If you have spoken, you must have spoken. But I'll just be very, I listened to NIPC. Thank you very much. And the Diaspora Commission hopes to partner further with NIPC as we move on. The issue of investment, of course, we know that this is going to be a challenging year, but this should be a year of opportunities despite the challenges. I believe that COVID-19 has shown that for all Nigerians in the diaspora, there's nowhere like home. As I speak with you, I'm busy sending messages to those who just want to come back home. They live abroad, but they just want to come back home. So whatever you all do, wherever you are there challenges in investing in your country? Definitely yes. But we have to surmount those challenges. When I was in Tampa, Florida for a program on investing in Nigeria, the Americans there said to us, we just want to come to your country. We know your challenges, we know that we know that is where we should be investing in. And post-COVID-19, they're coming in with some $3 billion investment into Nigeria. Now, the ease of doing business is getting better. But what I want to say is that as a government, and this is part of what DITCOM is fighting for, we should give Nigerians in the diaspora the first opportunities. The parliament is working on a local content bill. Whatever, there's no expertise we don't have in the diaspora. There's nobody you're looking for that you don't have. So before we take any foreigner, let's look at our brothers and sisters in the diaspora for anything we want to do. Even for investment purposes, when you go abroad, the first people you should be speaking to are Nigerians in the diaspora. We were in Switzerland some time ago, we're in the hall, we're marketing the diaspora bond. And when it was the time of this guy to speak, he said, listen, you haven't called the most important person in this country. He's my boss and he's a Nigerian. And we didn't even know he was there. So what we need to do is, number one, the Nigerian Diaspora Commission is coming up with a diaspora policy. We're waiting on the Federal Executive Council to ratify the policy, and it will become a policy to guide all diaspora engagements. And it's all encompassing. That's all, everything about investments and all that. We're working more with the Minister of Trade and Investment and NIPC to seek ways of encouraging more diaspora investment. We have to give our brothers and sisters, I'm not saying that any unnecessary privilege, but some opportunities. We should give them an edge. I'm going to fight for that over foreigners. I mean, they can do just what they can do. So COVID has delayed us. We're meeting with the Minister of Trade and Investment, Otumba Adebayo. So we have planned a mini diaspora, a mini investment summit in geopolitical zones, but we can't do that again. So we're going to sit with him on sending to you what I think incentives we can get from trade and investment, as well as NIPC. Of course, you know that we also have a Nigerian Diaspora Investment Summit. Again, it will not hold this year because of COVID. We do a virtual one, but we're so impressed that last year, a lot over 300 companies came to Nigeria to invest. And you know what? A lot of them have stayed back to do something. Mr. Godson, who is the first Black person to be elected into the Polish parliament, is now in Abia State. He owns a ranch, one of the best ranches anywhere in the world. You know Poland and ranches. He was able to bring back what he thought he could do from Poland. He's one of the best anywhere in the world, but he's here in Abia State running a ranch. There's this young man, I can't remember his name, but we call him JR. He does, I think, JR Coffee. He goes to somewhere in Ibadan, your state, and get some raw materials. He takes them to Rwanda, and today Rwanda is calling him to make coffee for virtually all their companies. So I just want to tell you that, yes, there are challenges. We'll do our best to ensure that Nigerians in the diaspora invest back. There are challenges, no doubt. And our platform is the Nigerian Diaspora Investment Summit, and I hope that you'll all participate. But the key thing is that no matter what, home is the best place to invest in. Yes, we don't have 24 electricity supply. I know those challenges. Some say insecurity, I know they are there, but something is making all these people calm. Something is bringing in the Chinese and Indians and Americans, and they're not going back. So whatever is bringing them should bring our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. And I want to appeal to you, Kule, thank you for what you're doing. You should be our first line of ambassadors, our first line of marketers. You should be there to say, you know what, come to my country. And when you come to the country, we have there, you have the Nigerian Diaspora Commission, we have a desk on investments, and we work with NIPC, and we have a strong relationship with the Ministry of Trade and Investment. So you should be the first line of saying, listen, this is what can be done. We're just a phone call away. We'll arrange we give the landing, what to do, who to go to, who to talk to. And I think that's what NADCOM is there for you also. Make use of the fact that we have a one-stop agency for the diaspora. And then, of course, there might be legislation, which I'm sure Honorable Tolu would have spoken about, to ease, the issue of Nigerian diaspora coming here to do things. But guess what? You should be the first line of contact, and you are the first line of contact. And no matter what happens, you should be able to tell your brothers and sisters wherever you live to encourage them to invest in Nigeria, in Africa. I know post-COVID-19, now with the issue of even what happened in America, George Floyd, a lot of Black Americans and Blacks in the diaspora are looking at coming to the continent of Africa. We've been engaging with a lot of them, and a lot of them want an economic connection, and a physical connection, and an emotional and spiritual connection with the motherland. So, you know what? Post-COVID-19, let's look at the opportunities, not the challenge. There's a whole lot we all can do together. And with the digital world, there's so much you can do. All I can tell you is that the Diaspora Commission is there for you. Whatever you want to invest, whatever you want to do, where we have challenges, we'll be there for you. There's a gentleman who did a whole lot of business, went into billions of dollars. He ran into trouble. He's upset, he's frustrated. He said, you know what? Why did I come here, man? I'm going back, man. Just give me my money, man. I'm going back to America, man. He said, cool down, my brother. We're there, we're solving the challenges he's facing. And, it's about communication. It's about being able to say, you have a commission you can work with, you have the commission you can walk into, and we can ease whatever problems you have. And then we're also working a lot with the Ease of Doing Business Office, with Oduwale. And I think that despite all the challenges, it's a country to invest in. President Buhari is focusing a lot on agriculture. When we did a survey out there for Nigerians in the diaspora, that 6% of Nigerians in the diaspora said they want to invest back home. And the areas were agriculture, Medicare, education, food business, ICT. And I think one of the major challenges, they said, we can't even register a company. So we'll be talking to Corporate Affairs Commission to see how we can make it easier for the Nigerian in the diaspora to be able to register from the comfort of your home. So we'll be meeting with the Corporate Affairs Commission, because that was a major challenge that a lot of you said you had. So we'll be dealing with it. And then whatever challenges, let us know. You can let us know through this chat, send us emails or through Mr. Kunle, and then we can continue to work together. But I want to tell you how proud we are of everybody in the diaspora. We look forward to tapping into the power of the diaspora. The power is immense, it's huge. We should not lose that opportunity. It's about human capital development. I want to thank all the diaspora on this forum and those of us at home putting this together. And the idea is let those of us at home and those in the diaspora work together to build a strong Nigeria of our dreams. So thank you very much for inviting me, and I look forward to more provision. Thank you, Kule, for putting this together.
Thank you very much for the wonderful speech you've made. And like you said, we'll take up the challenge of promoting our country. We'll take up the challenge of promoting Africa to Africans, Nigerians as well. Personally speaking, one of my experience is if you want to get in touch with anyone across Africa, when you look at the websites, you don't get proper responses, some 2 hours, even that as well. So I think if you're looking at investment into Africa, I think the little bits of things, information, dissemination, phone calls, email responses, I think if we improve on that, I'm sure we'll be able to start from somewhere from that. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had Honorable Abike Dabiri speak. The next person will be Mr. Sheyew Ileye, the Director General, Development Agenda for Western Nigeria. Mr. Ileye, please.
Thank you, Kule. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I have a short presentation which I will just go through straight away. And basically, I had a regional organization called DAWN. DAWN stands for Development Agenda for Western Nigeria. You might ask, why Western Nigeria? Well, Nigeria is a federal country and it consists of 36 states. So we have the western part that a few years ago decided to set up a commission to attract investments and fast track development into that part of Nigeria. So that was why we have DAWN Commission. But I said I will just quickly run through my presentation, my slides, which will highlight what DAWN is all about and the opportunities that are abound in Western Nigeria. So just give me a second. I will start the sharing shortly. Kule, it says you've disabled the screen sharing.
Okay, have you sent it to me?
I did.
Right,
Even though I sent it late, but I'm sure I can do it from here.
Can you keep talking? I will try and get it on.
Okay. Anyway, as I said, DAWN Commission stands for Development Agenda for Western Nigeria. It was conceived by the people and established by the governments of the Southwest states in 2013. As I said, Nigeria has 36 states, and the 6 states are in Southwest Nigeria: Lagos, Oyo, Ogun, Ondo, Osun, and Ekiti states. And our mandate, the mandate of the commission, is to manage Western Nigeria Development Agenda. The vision is again to make Western region of Nigeria the preferred place for people to visit, live, work, and invest. And our mission is to engender regional cooperation and integration as a catalyst for development. As I said, the 6 states felt that they are contiguous states, they have the same culture, speak the same language, and rather than work in silos, they decided to leverage on what the economists will say, economies of scale, that they can work together. Don't forget, well, for those who might not know, that so many years ago, those 6 states actually were a single state or region in Nigeria. But now that they've been broken into smaller states, we realize that it's better for them to cooperate as opposed to, as I said, work in silos. Kule, are you ready with the slides still?
No, I'm wondering which of my emails you sent it to.
Okay.
If you sent,
anyway.
Yeah.
It would have been easier with the slides.
Definitely, yes. Definitely, yeah.
Or you check your WhatsApp. I also sent you to WhatsApp as well.
Oh, all right. Continue talking. I'll definitely get it on.
So, Dawn Commission, we have what we call our development pillars, which is economic development, social and human capital, infrastructure development, and good governance and inclusive institutions. Pillars. Now, what do? Dawn Commission. We call it facilitation. We facilitate. We do policy and strategy for the 6 states, also advocacy. We are big on research and learning and also building partnerships. Those are the 5 things we do. And our approach is basically do more of a need identification assessment, engage states on needs and available opportunities, source support and opportunity for the states, and basically it leads into development. So again, the Southwest Nigeria, the landmass, approximately 80,000 square kilometers, population of about 45 million people. 45 million people. And when we talk of mineral endowment, we have about 30 major minerals in commercial quantity. And I'm emphasizing in commercial quantity because we've done all the scoping study for a lot of these things. The data is available here in our offices in Ibadan. What are the economic potentials? It holds 2 of Nigeria's most important deep sea ports, which is the Lagos ports and Lagos Port Complex, Apapa and Tinkan Island. It's also a popular destination for investment in the country because we say it is strategically positioned to access and retain investable funds both domestically and internationally. Education, we have the manpower because 6 out of the top 10 universities in the country is in this part of Nigeria. Major investments is in agriculture, agribusiness, manufacturing, mining, and services, very important. Increasingly, services is becoming a major part of the GDP of this region. Now, about 60% of the country's industrial manufacturing base is in this region, particularly Lagos and Ogun states. I'll rush through 1 or 2 things about the states. So if I start with Ekiti as an example, an agrarian state, but again, we have solid minerals in commercial quantity, clay, kaolin, and columbite. Then you can also explore opportunities in tourism. That's one area that Nigeria is still not tapping, tourism. And what we have done at my commission here is to have what we call a tourism calendar, which we've developed, but COVID has not actually allowed us to launch that out. We've only just recently developed that. Now, that's Ekiti State. So it says the wholesale and retail trade constitutes about 33% of the economy. Lagos State, as we all know, is well diversified across all sectors. So we have the real estate, we have the finance and insurance, arts and entertainment, manufacturing, healthcare. Those are just areas in Lagos State. So I don't need to say much about Lagos because we all know that it's reputedly at the moment the 5th largest economy in Africa. Then Ogun State, again, it's becoming another industrial hub for Nigeria. Up until 2018, about 70% of FDI into Nigeria, particularly when it comes to industries, went directly to Ogun State as at 2018. So Ogun State is doing very well by leveraging on its proximity to Lagos. Ondo State, again, another agrarian state, but with a lot of mineral resources. If you're talking of bitumen, I think it has one of the largest deposits in the world. Agriculture is also a major thing, cocoa in Ondo State, in Ondo State. Then we have Osun State. Osun State is very big on mining. I'm sure you must have been hearing about gold in Osun in commercial quantities. And the good thing now is that the government there has basically taking charge of mining in Osun. We used to have the challenges of illegal mining, but the state has taken near full control, and investors are now being attracted. Last year at the State of Osun Investment Summit, there are quite a few companies from Australia that came in to try and open discussions on mining in Osun. I mean, that's one major state that has a lot of mineral resources. Now, Oyo State, we are based in Oyo State here in Ibadan. Oyo State has the largest land mass in the region itself. We have the largest land mass. And this is a state that's crying out for major investments when you're talking of agriculture because of the land mass. Again, you can also tap into the skills and the knowledge here. It's a state that has a lot of research institutes based here in Ibadan. And that knowledge is something that we believe the diasporans can tap into. Again, as I said, 45 million, 45 million population. Kole, go straight to the Southwest states in brief. Just okay. Carry on. Right? Carry on. One more, carry on. Yeah. One more page.
One more page.
No,
okay.
just one more page. The next page.
Right, okay.
The next
this one?
page. Yeah, this one, thank you. So, again here we say that the population, Ogun State as an example, sorry, you've lost me again. Population here, we're talking about 5.76 million, Lagos 20 million. I keep emphasizing population because it's part of our strength. And a lot of the population here in Western Nigeria are what I would call available population if you're setting up. You don't need to, yes, we still have our challenges in certain skills, but we have enough skills for the potential investor. We're talking of key natural resources in some of the states. Again, I mentioned Ogun, which has the kaolin, the feldspar, limestone. Again, Osun, I mentioned gold, Ekiti bauxites, and Ondo, as I said, bitumen. Next slide, please. Thank you. It's a growing population, as I said. It's a ready labor pool for production. It hosts about 10.2 million youth between the ages of 18 and 35. It has the highest number of SMEs, small and medium scale enterprises. Again, I talked of availability of land and resources for expansion, strategic location, land, air, and sea, then opportunity for backward integration. I'm skipping one or two things. Then peace and security, it's very important. Without denigrating any part of the country, our region is still relatively safe. Across the country, yes, we have the challenges what the federal government is tackling, but Western Nigeria is still relatively safe, put it that way. Now, investment opportunities, you're looking at, as I said, Ogun. We have the industrial park and dry port projects. We have the power renewables. I'm trying to skip a few things. So we have the Agbara industrial estate. Then opportunity, which is actually growing in Ogun State at the moment. In Lagos,
What happened? I'm not exactly sure why it's frozen. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear you loud
Okay,
and clear.
okay. Shay, can you continue? I just stopped. Everything went quiet for a while. Has he gone off? Has he gone off? Mr. Yule, are you still there? Okay, I think
Network in Nigeria.
yeah, that's another investment opportunity in Oyo State. While we're still trying to get Mr. Yule back, I don't think he actually came off, but maybe the Wi-Fi in Cocoa House has frozen up. Hello, Mr. Yule, are you still there? I'm not exactly sure.
Why not
Not
phone
to,
him?
yeah, I'll call him. Not to hold everybody back. I would like to introduce to us here this afternoon, Mr. Eugene Nizeyimana. Well, we talk about investment opportunities to Africa. Now, we've spoken about what African countries need to put in place, what should have. One of the key things that needs to be done is how do we coordinate ourselves as diasporans in Africa? And one of the key things which we've done, which I'm proud to say I'm part of it, is we've set up what we call the Africa Business Chamber of Commerce, which is based in the West Midlands. Now, why did we set that up? It's because we realize we don't have representation in the Chamber of Commerce and Industries across the UK. Some of them that have, they don't have in-depth information about us, about Africans. You find out, you ask for any information about Africa, they're telling you about Afro-Caribbean. We are not Caribbeans, with all due respect. We are Africa. We need information about investment in Africa, how you can do exports, you can do imports. That's one of the fundamental reasons why we sat together and set up the Africa Business Chamber of Commerce. The chairman of that body is Mr. Eugene Nizeyimana. Eugene, can you please make your presentation, please? Eugene, are you here?
Hello, Kunle.
Yeah, okay. Eugene.
Sorry. Thank you so much. I'm not going to take your time. I'm sure much has been said, but I'm just going to give brief.
Hello, Kule.
Yes, please. Oh, Shay, you're back.
Sorry, let me just, it's, I mean, I didn't have any connection problem all day.
Okay.
But let me just, give me like 5 minutes or less, I'll finish.
Okay, Eugene, if you let us finish, please, before you go ahead.
Okay, Kule.
Okay. Yeah, you can continue now, Shay. You can continue.
So, go to the next slide. Oyo has, they're planning now what we call the dry ports in Ibadan here. I'm sure we all know, when I was talking about transportation, that, what's it called? There's a railway line coming from Lagos all the way to Kano, but the Ibadan segment, the Lagos to Ibadan segment is like 90% completed. So they've developed a dry port here in Ibadan, which means that if your container is not going to be used in Lagos, everything will be shifted down to the dry port from here. So there are opportunities that can be explored with having a dry port here in Ibadan. As I said, also, Oyo State has the largest landmass for those who want to do farming. And the process for acquiring land has been simplified. Again, we have the expertise in here at Dawn for anyone that wants to access land. You don't need to go to any omonile, as they say here, or think that you can just go and buy land and someone then swindles you. State of Osun, as an example, has what they call the land bank in Osun. So if you want land for agriculture, you only approach the land bank and you take it from there. The process is very simple. Again, for diasporans, you might have had previous horrible experiences, but trust me, because there's a major drive for investments in the country. A lot of things are changing, and we need to tap into that. Talking of Ekiti, rice, cashew, food crops. Again, tourism in Ekiti. You only need to look at the land area in Ekiti, look at the vegetation, look at the I'm looking for that word now. In Ekiti, it's an area that's crying out for investment in tourism. And again, these are areas I would say that can be easily be explored. Ondo State, for Ondo State, thank you. There is a road, and I need to let diasporans know this. There's a road being constructed between Ondo State, running from Ondo State to Lagos, across, running parallel along the coast. It's from a place called Araromi in Ondo State, and it goes into Akodo in Lekki in Lagos State.
Right.
Now, that road is 38 kilometers, 38 kilometers. For those in UK, just convert it to miles. That's about less than about 20 miles or so. You'll be surprised. Ondo State to Lagos. Now, the road is called the Araromi. Araromi has the longest beach fronts in Nigeria. People don't know that. That road is an economic belt once completed. It's ongoing at the moment. And for people that want to invest in the areas of hotel, tourism, that's one area you have to look into. That belt, the Araromi to Epe. It also means that you can site your industries in Ondo State and get your goods to Lagos easier. Because, as I said, from Araromi in Ondo State to Akodo in Lekki in Ekpe is only 38 kilometers. You can do that in 40 minutes or 1 hour if you're crawling. Anyway, what's the role of Dawn? As I said, we do linkages. The commission facilitates necessary linkages between and among state actors and non-state actors. We do policy and strategy advocacy. The commission advocates to the necessary MDAs on the need for improvements in the processes and procedures of activities. Again, we have all the relevant offices in the state. So in Lagos, you have the Lagos Global Office. If you want, that's an office to contact for investment. In Ekiti, it is called the Ekiti State Development Promotion Agency. In Ogun, Investment Promotion Agency as well. Likewise, Ondo. And again, the region has improved greatly when you're talking about the role of Dawn in the business environment. In the World Bank Ease of Doing Business, a lot of work has gone in over the last 2 years among our states. And I can tell you that it is no longer business as usual. Gone are the days that you'll be thinking of, oh, if I go to approach state A, 3 months, my file is not yet out, or they've not returned my calls. No. At Dawn Commission, we make things a lot easier. In short, you can even call us a one-stop shop for the 6 states. We do that. And also, as I said, we do a lot of research work. When I was talking of mineral resources earlier on, I said commercial quantities. I'm not just plucking that from my head. A lot of research work has gone in. A lot of scoping study paid for has been done. That if you are interested, reach out to Dawn Commission. Now, role of government, we're talking of investments, incentives for investors. Here, I would like to emphasize the federal government's incentives here, because Dawn Commission, Western Nigeria, we operate within the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And investments in economically disadvantaged areas, 100% tax holiday. Again, we have a tax credit of 20% is granted for 5 years to industries that attain the minimum level of local raw material sourcing. Tax exemption for small companies in agriculture. We have the Agricultural Credit Guarantee Scheme Fund, administered by the CBN. In solid minerals, we have 3 to 5 years tax holiday, deferred royalty payments, possible capitalization of expenditure, exemption from payments of customs and import duties for holders of mining license. Telecommunications, again, we talk of manufacture, installation of telecommunications-related equipment is considered as pioneer activity. Look at, I got cut off a few minutes ago. It's because of the challenges we have in that sector. But a lot of incentives have been put in place. There's something we call the right of way. it used to be 4,000 naira or something like that. A lot of states now have cut it about 145 or 140 naira, just to attract investment in the broadband sector. Energy, tax holiday of 3 to 5 years is granted to companies that manufacture transformers, meters, etc. Then sector-focused incentives, which is more or less the last slide. Again, in tourism, transportation, shipbuilding repairs and maintenance of vessels, etc. Again, enjoy the 3 to 5 years tax holiday. The opportunities are abound. What my advice, again, to my diasporan brothers and sisters is the way we operated 10, 20 years ago, it's no longer the way we're operating now. The climate is changing, and as Honorable Abike Dabiri said, a lot of non-Nigerians are coming in and capitalizing on these reforms to make, for want of a better word, making a killing. So there's nothing stopping us from coming back home to invest. As I said, I had a commission called Dawn Commission, which primarily my role is for the 6 states in the Southwest. Those are my contact, and my contact number is there. My email is also there. And we do respond immediately. We don't wait 3 weeks before we respond. Trust me. Once we know the issue, we put someone on top of it. Once again, I thank you, Kunle, for the opportunity. Sorry for the break in transmission. And thank you for listening, everybody. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much for this. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
Please, can we see the contact again, please?
I will I'll send that to you on the chat room. While we are having this, we'll have a question and answer session at the end of this discussion. We have only 2 more speakers. Eugene, can you please continue with your speech now? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kure. I won't take that long. I'm just going to be brief. I'm sure much has been said. I'm delighted to be joining this platform and, of course, all the recommendation. And thank you for Kunle for the hard work. So briefly, just to highlight what we're doing, based in the UK, Birmingham specifically. So as Kunle just mentioned, we recently launched an African Chamber of Commerce based in Birmingham in the UK. Our main 2 mission is basically, one is to empower African businesses in the UK, because quite often we tend to forget, we focus too much about investing in Africa, but forget we go majority of African diasporas who are living here for so many years, which they consider here at home. So we need also to support them in terms of their businesses, how they can grow and thrive in this society, because one of the challenges and the issue and the gaps we've seen is the productivity and the contribution of African businesses in the UK economy is very low, and we are not taken or considered seriously as contributor on the economy compared to our peers like the Asian communities who are currently driving the economy. So we need to change that mindset, and it's about how can we work collaboratively as an African society, move away from working in silos as community from Nigeria, Ghana, or Rwanda. I'm from Rwanda, but I see myself as African. So how can we collaborate as Ugandan and South African? Because the challenges we face here, they are not facing us as individuals. They are facing us as a community, as African in the UK. So how can we collaboratively work together, support each other, empower ourselves, share resources and opportunities? So the second one is what we focus on is about investing smartly in Africa. So supporting African diaspora who are looking to invest in Africa smartly is about directing diaspora remittance into impact investment sectors of the economy. I think quite often when we talk about investment in Africa, as often we see investment is about oil and gas, mining, high capital industries. So we are working to see how we can change this focus also in terms of investing into more impactful sectors of economy, such as SMEs, healthcare, agribusiness, technology, manufacturing. We've been doing quite a lot of work with African Union and DIT and a couple of embassies, looking to see how we can transfer knowledge in terms of how can we improve manufacturing in Africa as part of the Africa 64 industrialization strategy. So how can we enhance production of African agro businesses, agro food and the product to improve value? I was listening to the discussion earlier on. We talked about example as cocoa. We continue to ship raw material abroad to be processed and be sold in Africa as any product. I think almost 100% price, almost, and it's not affordable. So we need to change this mindset. And also we continue to talk about SDG, the 27 SDG goals. One of it is reduce food waste. How can we reduce food waste? It's about processing some of the product we have in Africa so that we can save them for long term. I had an opportunity last year to, for example, I was in Nigeria and I've done quite a lot of businesses in Nigeria. And I traveled from, for example, from Abuja to Kano. And I observed how many food are being wasted on the road because they cannot reach the market, they cannot be processed. And it's an opportunity to see how can we take these horticultural products like fruits and vegetables, tomatoes, produce them into things like tomato juice that can serve long-term purpose than being wasted. So across Africa, we see a lot of all this waste along Malawi, Tanzania. We are working with various investors setting up like processing factories for cashew nuts, where we've been working the government to stop cashew nuts being exported to countries like India, Vietnam, and those countries so that they can be processed locally. And one of success stories, we set up a plant where we're able to convert cashew apple into like almost 12 products from cooking oil to cashew wine to cashew to converting the cashew cover into lubrication for automotive lubrication and things like that. So that's the value we're talking about. And also we're looking in terms of manufacturing production. We are in the conversation with various government representatives in how we can drive automotive sector in Africa. So as part of my background, I've worked in the automotive industry at Jaguar and Rover and all those, and we've been looking policy reform in Nigeria to see how we can improve automotive industry sector. Nigeria, South Africa, Rwanda, Kenya. Those are sectors we believe will add more value. Ghana is coming on board. So those are areas we'll be focusing, moving away from capital-intense industries such as oil and gas and mining, because we've seen for a long time they never add value. They tend to be more politicized. And in that way, we can even create more opportunities by focusing in this sector. Like now, I'm sure Kulure have seen, we also been working with the Ugandan government, Nigerian Doctor Association, and a couple of nursing associations to support Africans who've been affected by COVID-19 in the UK. So you've seen cases, quite a lot of our people have lost a lot of professionals because of the current crisis, which has affected mostly our people, and at the same time is affecting a lot of BME or Black African businesses in the UK. So these are the areas that we are focusing, which are likely to bring more value in the short term and also support African close to home. We need to move away from only when we're talking about investing in Africa, forgetting that there's also African in the UK who's been living here. They still have connection in Africa, but this is where they call home. But we need to empower them to see how they can grow and thrive, become productive citizens, both in the UK, and hopefully by them thriving in the UK, they can invest smartly in Africa. So we continue to see quite a lot of cases where quite a lot of Africans in the UK are sending a lot of money in Africa, but not directed in the right channels or ill-informed, and some of those money are wasted or invested in some of their family relatives who are not investing them into long-term projects that can empower them to become self-sustainable in the long term. So we've received quite a lot of support from various government representatives, and we welcome those on the call who might be interested to partner with us. I'm sure Kunle will share more information, and over the coming month, in October, we are hosting a virtual trade and investment summit, and we are encouraging UK government to come on board also to continue work with us on how we can strengthen investment between UK and Africa post-Brexit, but also see how also they can be able to seize the opportunities in Africa effectively. And also, it's also about getting them to position themselves appropriately, move away from the whole dynamics of complaining China is exploiting in Africa, or other players are dominating the African landscape. At the moment, Africa is an open market, and unfortunately, a lot of foreigners are dominating the investment landscape than our own people. And with the current COVID climate, we've seen quite a decline in the FDI, or reverse investment, what we're calling it, because of decline in investors' attitude to risk. Likewise, also we are seeing what we call deglobalization. Instead of going global, a lot of countries are moving back into reversing the globalization to globalization, and also focusing in what we call it localization. It's about building local industries that caters for the local market. And I hope we could also champion that, move away from the mindset that African industries are focusing on not only exporting abroad. It's about also building local markets for African products, which in a way will help to empower and build the local supply chain. I'm not going to take your time. I know so many has been talked about, but the future is bright, and the current COVID-19 crisis has brought so many things into question, especially when we look in terms of how the global supply chain is shaped. Depending too much on China as the global industry is no longer going to be the case. And we need also to move away from Africa continue to import food from abroad. I think last year we spent almost 30 billion exporting food from abroad, while we have almost 60% of arable land in Africa. These are some of the resources we need to think how we can utilize, maximize all the resources. Yes, I know Nigeria is one of the biggest markets. More have been said about the opportunities in Nigeria and other continents and other countries in the continent. However, we also need to think about the governance. Unfortunately, from my experience, we've spent quite a lot of time. For example, in 2013, we were working the government to promote the automotive industry in Nigeria, putting together the policies and things like that. And we attracted a lot of automotive companies like Nissan and Toyota and all those to invest. But because of poor governance and the change of inconsistency in the policies and things like that, all those invested did not take place. So we need to think about governance and how can governance create a conducive environment and the trust to invest in our African countries, to make sure that anybody who wants to invest have the trust to know I'm not going to put my money and then tomorrow the government change, the policy change, and then I lose all the money. So we've seen those cases across Africa, changing the policies and so many other directions that are not attractive to investors. And of course, as long as we continue to do that, Western countries or Western investors will not take us seriously. So without not taking your time, those are my views. I'm sure Kunle will share our contact. Anybody who want to collaborate with us or who have opportunities locally that want to share in our platform. So as I mentioned, we'll be hosting a summit in October, and the next year we'll we'll host another one. Hopefully, the situation will have been improved, and the Brexit is another area that is likely to create opportunity because the UK is looking to build more partnership and trade relationship with Africa post-Brexit. So these are opportunities. We welcome African businesses or individuals here looking to work through that channel. To work with us, we can be able to direct you in the right direction. Of course, working collaboratively with various trade representatives of African government across London, but in collaboration also with local businesses and partners. So that's my short summary in terms of some of the things, and we hope to do some of the areas we're going to focus on, and we will welcome any collaboration, anybody interested. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eugene, for that. And while before you finally go, may I just ask if anyone in Africa wants to find out any information about how to invest in the UK or anything, is the chamber in a position to do that, to assist that in that respect?
At the moment, of course, we are still at the setting up stage, and unfortunately, due to the COVID crisis, it has kind of inhibited progress. But we've been working behind, trying to establish the platform. We've hosted various discussions with various representative government officials, including UK government officials like various Chamber of Commerce in the UK. We've been engaging with Her Majesty Trade Mission to Africa to establish how we're going to build this relationship. We've engaged with quite a lot of representatives from African embassies in London. However, with the situation, with the lockdown and the focus on combating COVID-19, some of this action has not taken place. However, we are hoping that as we emerge from lockdown and the positioning ourselves in the new normal, we'll be able to start providing services in the coming few months.
Okay.
So at the moment, we are using the time. Also, we are monitoring the change in the global dynamics in terms of economic trends, how the investment landscape is changing, how the economy is shifting, what are the forces driving the economy and the transformation and change. Hopefully, we'll be able to support our members or those interested effectively. But at the moment, with so many players, dynamics transforming the economy on a daily basis, it's quite difficult, and we are limited to some of the things we can do on an honest point of view until we know the situation, the environment. There's concern in terms of the impact of COVID-19, a second wave. I was seeing some news coming from China and other places. So these are concerns, and anybody not many people are thinking to invest in the short term until this kind of situation has improved. However, of course, we will continue to engage people to understand their needs so that when the opportunity comes, we can be able to support them effectively.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Eugene. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we've had speakers from West Africa, from East Africa, even from Europe here. We've had speakers here. The last but not least speaker we have on this webinar this afternoon is all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Adetunji Omotola from Johannesburg, South Africa. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Kole. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Adetunji Omotola. I am speaking to you from South Africa. Today is a special day in South Africa. Many of you remember that 44 years ago on this day, students in Soweto refused to accept Bantu education, which was the apartheid system of education, and they protested, and many students, young students, were killed in South Africa, hundreds of them. And so today is a very special day in South Africa. It's called Youth Day. So I'm starting from that premise. Also, I believe it's the International Day of the Youth today. Now, South Africa, as we know, is the second largest economy in Africa, following closely hot on the heels of Nigeria. But South Africa has had a different type of history. In 1886, gold was discovered in an area called the Witwatersrand. For those who know Johannesburg very well, there's a university called Wits University, and in full, it's the Witwatersrand. Now, after gold was discovered in 1886, those who were in the gold business, they decided a gentleman by the name of Benjamin. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, sorry, we can hear you.
Sorry, because I'm using my phone. I think a call was trying to get in. So in 1887, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange was set up. And between 1887, because of the gold boom, a huge gold boom in the 1890s, between 1887 and 1934, about 200 million pounds had been invested in the gold industry in South Africa. And of that 200 million pounds, half of that, about 100 million pounds, had come from foreign direct investment. And what you then saw in the 20s and the 30s, in the 1920s and the 1930s, was an industry that was growing because obviously they had also discovered diamond in a place called Kimberley. And so today, South Africa is one of the largest exporters of gold and diamond, as well as platinum, palladium, and it's also the biggest producer of chrome, as well as many other minerals. But having said all of that, we should also be mindful that South Africa was under a system that took away the black people from their land and legitimized that with a law called the Native Land Act in 1913. So all black people, whether they were living in the Eastern Cape or the Western Cape, were forcibly removed from their land, and those lands were then taken over. So today in South Africa, you have 80% of the land controlled by 10% of the population. So the population distribution in South Africa is 80% black, you have about 10% white, you have about 7% colored, and about 3% Indian. So that is why in South Africa, many people talk about the words white monopoly capital. And what that means is that there's a lot of wealth in the hands of the minority, and there's a lot of poverty in the hands of the majority who are black people. But what has happened in the last few years in terms of FDI is that whilst we had FDI at about $8 billion in 2013, FDI fell sharply to about $2 billion in 2016, and then it rose again in 2018 to about $5 billion. And the reason why there's been a sharp increase in FDI in South Africa is because President Cyril Ramaphosa made it a duty when he came to power that he wanted to raise $100 billion by 2023. But of course, we know that with the COVID situation, that will prove extremely difficult because many countries around the world are also dealing with their own problems. And many of the countries that are invested in South Africa, mostly Europe and the United States and China, are also battling with serious economic challenges. And so that will affect the ability of South Africa to be able to raise revenue. But one of the questions that Kunle posed to me was, why do people invest in South Africa? Well, if you look at the landscape of South Africa, first of all, you have an infrastructure that is second to none anywhere in the rest of the continent. And not only do you have a strong, viable, powerful infrastructure, you also have 50,000 megawatts of electricity, uninterrupted power supply. Of course, there are structural challenges in terms of capacity of Eskom to be able to deliver in terms of maintaining that electricity because the population is increasing by about 700,000 people every single year. So South Africa's population, while it was about 44 million about 15 years ago, today it's sitting at 57 million people. And that's about 4% of Africa's population. So it's growing significantly. It's number 5 in Africa. It is only the populations of countries that are bigger than South Africa, of course, are Nigeria, Ethiopia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. What is also useful to understand is that in South Africa, financial services has become almost the mainstay. For example, Standard Bank, which is the largest bank in Africa, has got 20% Chinese investment in it. And so Standard Bank is one of the 4 major banks. Of course, in Nigeria, there are 25 banks, but their capitalization is far lower than the capitalization of the likes of Nedbank, which is also involved in Nigeria and the rest of West Africa with Echo Bank. And of course, you also have the likes of the financial giants like Old Mutual. Old Mutual is one of the largest financial services companies, if not the largest in Africa. And it was founded in 1845, and it used to be called Fairbank Capital. And what is interesting in South Africa is that while in the rest of the continent, you will see that banks own insurance companies, in South Africa, the reverse is true. So the insurance companies own a percentage of the banks, and the insurance companies also invest a lot in property, particularly commercial property like shopping malls, to be able to give a yield. So South Africa, not only does it have infrastructure, it's got a diversified economy, it's got strong democracy. Since 1994, when Nelson Mandela took the oath to become the first Black president, there's been no coup d'etats, and there's been no insecurity, and there's been no instability. And that is a major, major fundamental progress chart for South Africa. But not only that, political parties in opposition in South Africa have a strong voice. There's democracy in the true sense of it. Not only are elections held regularly, but the opposition has a voice. Perhaps that is because of proportional representation. So if you get 50,000 votes in South Africa, you will find yourself being able to represent your constituency in parliament. And that is why you see that the likes of Julius Malema has become almost like a rock star with 44 members of parliament. That is very significant. And so also what I wanted to share with the audience is that if you look at the fact that the first ever country up till date to host the FIFA World Cup was South Africa, that for me is a significant branding for South Africa. There is an organization in South Africa called South African Tourism. There's also Brand South Africa. And what does Brand South Africa do? They promote South African business around the world. They have offices in Nigeria, they have offices in the UK, they have offices all over the show. And what that does, it puts the South African flag out there for people to be able to ask questions about investing in South Africa. And another thing I wanted to point out, which a lot of people do not know, South Africa is a country where people appreciate that, first of all, not only is it a beautiful country, I mean, you have the winelands that produce wines, about 300 million liters of wine every year, which contributes about 6% to GDP, but also the food culture. Perhaps that's because you have Indians, colors, Africans, and white people here. So the food culture is also very, very advanced. So there's about 10,000 restaurants in South Africa. You have hotel chains that have gone around the continent that are doing very, very well. But specifically speaking to investments in the country, because this country has gone through a lot of challenges in terms of low growth, very difficult to create jobs, and there's so much unemployment, about 29%. What has happened is that President Ramaphosa has created an investment platform where he says he's going to raise a lot of money to be able to invest in manufacturing, to improve exports, and also create jobs. And there's something called the Foreign Investment Grant, which allows individuals or even portfolio flows to come in to specific sectors of the economy. There's also the social support in terms of skills training. If you're to come into the country, you're able to get at least 50% of the cost of training to be able to reduce the emphasis on what you need to spend. There are also other opportunities in terms of immigration. If you're to bring in $1 million into South Africa, in terms of worldwide assets, you could get direct permanent residency on arrival. But of course, you have to pay about 1% of that to the state. So in terms of immigration, the laws are very good. For those who want to move over, of course, you have to employ South Africans, but you also have to be mindful of the local legislation, what we call in Nigeria, local content. In South Africa, it's called the Black Economic Empowerment. It's called the BEE, like the bee, the insect. So if you're coming into this country, you need to employ Black South Africans because of they call them the historically disadvantaged individuals or the previously disadvantaged individuals. Now, what is also interesting is the South African companies, if you look at their scale and size, because the Johannesburg Stock Exchange is the most capitalized stock exchange in Africa and about top 20 in the world. Currently, the market capitalization of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange is almost $800 billion. That is a staggering amount. It's almost as large as the GDP of the entire African continent. But we've got to remember that that is private sector money. But the good thing about that kind of money is that it can go wherever it needs to go. So there are companies in South Africa, I'm sure many of us know MTN, we know Mnet or DSTV, MultiChoice. They're all over the continent, and they've been able to give South African companies a lot of mileage on the continent. So my take on South Africa, I think what also works for them is, or what works for this country is that they've got individuals that have global iconic status. And it doesn't matter what preference order, you have Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, who is not only the first Black president of South Africa, but also a Nobel Peace Prize winner. You also have Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who is still alive and well, in his 90s perhaps, and is also a Nobel Peace Prize laureate. You also have a gentleman by the name of Albert Luthuli, who is the first, I believe, is the first Black Nobel Peace Prize laureate, and he got it in the 60s. He was a former president of the ANC, and you have people like Winnie Mandela, who's also a global icon, a leading champion for women's rights and for empowerment of Black people. But what I wanted to say before I finish, I believe that in terms of talking about investment into Africa, going beyond South Africa, I want to quote another Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Kofi Annan, who said, "There will be no sustainable development without peace and security, and there will be no peace and security without sustainable development." The biggest challenges we have on the African continent today is not that we don't have enough arable land, we don't have a large population, smart diaspora, people like Tony Elumelu, Aliko Dangote, Mohamed Duji. The biggest challenge we have, and I'm very, very clear to say this, we still do not have leaders who are champions for peace. There are too many leaders who are using the Trump style of leadership to divide us and to play the tribal card. And then we have a lot of people running away through Libya, finding themselves in Europe as refugees or arriving on boats, and they're dead on arrival. So if we can promote peace in Africa, if we can promote education and promote gender equity, I believe that Africa will be well on its way, like the Asian tigers, Hong Kong, Thailand, Malaysia, and all those other countries. That is my submission. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Tunji Omotola, for that fantastic, what can I say about it? You virtually sold South Africa to everyone as another investment destination for Africa. I'm sure people here will be looking at that, and it will begin to tickle people's consciousness about opportunities there and what can be done. Right. We've overshot our time. Initially, we said it was going to be 2 hours. We are going to 4 o'clock, like 15 minutes. To make maximum use of those few minutes, we have questions which I would like the audience here, just a bit, it's like changing what we have initially. Does anyone have any question to ask any of our guest speakers here? Who is that? Okay. Otumba Olabode, do you want to ask? Do you have any question to ask? You're on mute, sir. Can you unmute yourself? Or let me see if I can help you. Okay.
Yes.
Otumba Olabode, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. You've done a very good job. The problem I have with all these presentations is little has been said about the people, because 95% of the endeavors of any business, investors, and so on and so forth, is to be able to help the people. But when I look at the situation in Nigeria, where an average worker is less than how many dollars? 30,000 naira, that's salary that are not being paid, and legislators taking home millions of naira every month. No wonder when the investors come from the airport, they've seen the poverty, they know exactly how to treat the people of that country. And as you will agree with me, the way we have been treated, and average Nigeria have been treated, is not good. So the question is, what are these legislators, especially advisors and so on, are doing to ameliorate, to help, to better the life of an average Nigerian? Because it's one thing to invite investors to come and deal with the challenges. It's also another thing to also give dignity and respect to the people of their countries. Thank you.
Okay. Who are you directed that question to, sir?
All of them.
May I take that question?
Okay, Honorable Shadipe, please.
Yes, thank you so much for that opportunity. You see, this issue, I'm a legislator, but this issue of legislators keeps coming up. And I sort of blame media as well, because media is not getting it right. They go on and on about salaries of legislators. But do you know what legislators do? Unfortunately, in Nigeria, legislators are not doing what we're supposed to do alone. We make the laws, but we have a serious responsibility to our constituencies. That if the country had been working the way it's supposed to work, I'm not supposed to be the one paying the school fees of people in my constituency. I'm not supposed to be the one paying the medical bills of people in my constituency. I'm not supposed to be the one rehabilitating the people of my constituency with regards to social welfare. I'm busy providing water. I'm busy providing power. I'm busy providing empowerment. I'm busy providing education. I'm busy providing employment. I'm busy providing, did I mention power? Power, jobs, please, for crying out loud. Let us all, as Nigerians, start focusing on what is the real issues. The real issues is the executive arm of government needs to take social economic responsibilities, so it stops being the responsibility of the legislator. And I'll tell you one thing. First of all, the salary of the legislators that they keep talking about.
You're not interested in this, please.
I think the journalists really need to look into this, because they keep putting that word out so that the information that goes out is accurate information. That information is not accurate. And let us start being true to ourselves. The other day, the social welfare system, the legislators queried this issue of the 20,000 naira that was being distributed. What happened? The journalists turned on us. So let's get things in perspective. We're talking about investments here. The issue of legislators' salary shouldn't have come in, but because it was raised, I needed to address it. If it hadn't been raised, we wouldn't be talking about it on this platform. But as it's been raised, we need to address it. As Nigerians, let us begin to focus on the right areas. My own accountability to my people should be the focus of my tenure, and that is making sure that the proper laws are put in place. But unfortunately, I've had to carry the responsibility of the executive as well, and it takes money to do that. And
right.
if
Thank you very much.
Let me
But I think the legislator brought
sorry,
that upon ourselves.
Moderator, please.
The legislator who has a constituency. Okay, all right.
Okay. Have you finished, please?
Yes, I just wanted to address that issue, that aspect of it. I want everybody on this platform to go and do their homework and do proper research.
Okay. Right, Mr. Barua.
Yeah, guys, good afternoon, moderator, Mr. Akunle Adoremi. Ladies also in the forum, I want to thank you for coming on board at the same time. I mean, we're talking about issue of diaspora and investment into Africa. I wouldn't have thought the honorable that I've just spoken will be using it from that angle in terms of governance in Nigeria. That is completely out of what the focus as far as I'm concerned. We had Honorable Bike Dabiri as well. She spoke very well. The issue as always...
I must interrupt you. I'm sorry, moderator. Please, you need to address what the statement he just made. He made a statement, and the reason why that came up, he probably wasn't listening to Otumba. When Otumba Olabode raised the issue of legislator salaries. If Otumba had not raised
sorry, Honorable Tolupe. Sorry, the theme of discussion is based or is centered on diaspora and governance in Africa. And I want us to basically looking from a bigger perspective rather than being narrowed down to the issue of a particular constituency in Nigeria, i.e. in terms of education, in terms of transportation. There are channels or things that you can actually put in place to alleviate such problems. So we are talking on the bigger picture here, my honorable. But beyond that, excuse me.
I would appreciate if you moderate on this particular issue because I'm not going to.
Okay.
This issue will always come every time.
No, but then you should address it.
I think it's important that you take control over this issue, and we don't narrow it down to the issue that has been raised. The honorable is right in addressing that issue. That is not what we are here to be talking about. But if it has been brought in rather unceremoniously, he has to deal with it anyway. But I don't think that's the line to go anyway. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Babio. Mr. Barua, can I just make a comment before you go ahead? With all due respect to everyone, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let us focus our questions on attracting investment to Africa.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Don't let us go into personal issues about what people earn and all that. We are here on this forum to add value to Africa. We should not target each other. We should show respect to each other. And Otumba Olabode, I understand your question. And no, sir. With all due respect, I will say let us leave it like that. Let's focus on issues of attracting investments to Africa, what we can do, how we can network together. That's what we should be talking about. If anybody wants to say anything now, please, let's focus strictly on that.
Let me finish, please, gentlemen and ladies.
Okay.
Well, basically, what we're basically talking about is the issue of attracting investment into Africa, like Alhaji Monel Bankole actually mentioned, and some other people on the forum as well. I would like us to take it from that angle. There was a guy in South Africa that just mentioned, of course, I don't know him, but he spoke well. I mean, that is on a general level. And this is the same problem we are having Nigerians abroad. And I'm talking across spectrum, across everywhere that Nigerians are stationed, be in the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, or Spain, or wherever we find ourselves. So again, we should be able to bring it together, and the government in each nation, in each country, will be able to give these people soft landing in terms of attracting foreign investment. Bear also in mind, it's not just about gathering the momentum in terms of investment from diaspora. We need to be able to bring in funding as well to make it work. Everybody on the platform, majority of everybody on this platform, I can bet you 100%, there's one key thing that's always missing for everybody is the issue of funding. How do we get that together? And this is exactly where we should be able to focus in bringing those power to Africa. Thank you very much for your time.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Barua. Do we have another person to ask? One person for last question before we round up, please.
Mr. Lewis, did you see me here?
I have my hand up. My hand is up. My hand has been up.
Right, yeah, that's true.
Mr.
Mr. Odion Iyori, please introduce yourself, where your location, please, and straight to the question, please. Straight to the question.
Yeah, I've heard you. Okay. I live in England. I live in Durham.
Okay.
And that's in Kent.
Right.
But also go to Nigeria quite often. I must tell you, this is a great effort. But the greatest contribution for me has been a guy called Eugene, who comes from, my question is going to go to him.
Right, okay.
Now, at independence, before independence, all that the colonial master wanted was cash crops. So he didn't bother about how you manage markets for food crops. And that's what we have been doing. We didn't take care of the food crops. We didn't take care of the cash crop where the oil came and the rest of them came. And until you manage your economy well, so that people don't come in and see poverty everywhere, you won't be an investment attraction. You need to be able to ensure that you feed your people if the countryside is properly run. It's a shame that 60 years after independence, houses are still built in African villages with mud. The construction companies, there are no apprenticeships.
Sir, are you asking a question or you're making a comment?
Questions to that man. Questions to Eugene.
Okay.
Eugene, you need to put together a proper document looking at what you talked about inter-African trade, taking care of agriculture, and ensuring that all this should be done. How quickly can you do this, and what funding will you require for it? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Eugene, do you want to answer the question, or should we just, I'll pass that question to you since I'm a member of one of the board of directors of the chamber as well. May I use this opportunity to thank everyone who have been part of this event since we started over 1 o'clock today. I want to thank Honorable Abike Dabiri, Honorable Tolulope Akodeshadipe for taking time out. I want to thank every other speaker here this afternoon who have made contributions beyond expectations. I would like to say we are grateful for this. We are grateful to our sponsors as well, Business Day Newspaper in Nigeria, Africa Chamber of Commerce as well in the UK. At the same time, I would like to let you know, we have this webinar recorded, which is going to be featured in Business Day Newspaper in coming days. It will be a pleasure to send a communique out to everyone. I think I have everyone's email address now. And going forward, I've had some requests of people that want to make contact. I will be contacting you privately, individually to get that done. And to all our speakers, please, in the next couple of days, be rest assured, I will be in touch with you to do more follow-ups on what you've said and what people are requesting for. We will be doing that. We'll be featuring this webinar as well in the next edition of InvestAfrica magazine, which will come out in July as well. I'll be happy to share that with everyone via the e-copy, whoever wants that copy as well. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers.
Can I interrupt you before you go?
Okay,
I was going to make a recommendation. Because this is a diaspora-related webinar, if you're going to have a repeat webinar, could you please move the time further back? Because of people in other parts of the world, because of time difference.
Yes,
please.
that's duly noted. That's duly noted. Thank you very much for that, my dear Honorable. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for attending. I'm most grateful. I will be in touch with everyone individually in the next coming up days. Thank you so much, and have a very good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye.